Welcome to the Power of How. I'm Matt Fulchiron. I've been a professional comedian for, I guess, about 20 years. And it's been a brutal business. And I've had to find ways to cope with said brutal business, not to mention my alcoholism and 2020, the year 2020. I don't know. I know you guys had an easy year, 2020, but for me, it felt like a global pandemic. I'm here with two of my good friends, Daniel Tirado.
Hey, man. How you doing?
Good. Tell us about yourself, Daniel. Please.
I guess. What do you want to know? I am I'm a comic as well. You know what?
I'm just laughing because this is your idea to introduce yourself.
Yes.
And you're fighting it.
Yeah, no.
And I said I didn't like structure.
No.
But then I did the
Yeah,
structure.
but you know why? Because I was expecting a little more from you. You just said
really?
you're a professional comedian for 20 years,
really?
but there's more to Matt Fulchiron than comedy for 20 years.
Yeah, because there is more to me. Because I started out all bright and bushy-tailed, and then I got into this business, and it's brutal, and you got to keep your head up, and you got to keep moving, and there's not always a lot going for you. I spent a lot of time alone with the voices in my head. I don't know if you've seen the movie Taxi Driver or Joker, just like all that nonsense. And I've really had to find an optimism in the past couple of years, and I've pretty much found it. It's a daily battle, but I've found it.
That's amazing.
And I'm no expert, but listen, this is the 21st century, and we're on the internet, and we're going to pretend like we're experts. No, we're just going to we're mostly going to complain about our lives and then try to find the optimistic, the bright side, where how to keep moving through this battle of life.
Well, it's cool. I met Matt when at the Comedy Nest in Montreal. I was just starting off as a comic, and you started headlining.
Right.
And I was you were like one of the first comics from the States that really blew me away.
Oh, thank you.
Just your sense. I've told you this a million times, but your sense of style is so refreshing. Which you don't see a lot of style here. You see like great writing. And yeah, of course you do see some, but there's something about your swagger on stage that's just so amusing.
Thank you.
You don't need to say much to be funny. You have
this is a very positive podcast. I'm feeling good already.
So let's start with that connection, and that was what, maybe
it was 2007, December of 2007.
Jesus.
I remember.
Yeah, over 15 years ago.
Wow.
And we stayed in touch, and then I moved to New York, and then you came to New York as well. So happy to know that you were here. So I'm originally from Montreal, and started doing. I got into the acting business. I studied acting in New York, and I went to this theater school, great school. And then when I was done, I was lost, I was like, I don't know what to do exactly. And a teacher gave me great advice. He said, don't be that actor that just like waits by the phone for an audition. Do something. Be as proactive as possible. And I thought, what could be more proactive than, stand-up comedy? And I only thought of that because I was just about that time I was reading Robin Williams' biography. And, he started off as an actor at Juilliard. Yeah. And he dropped out of school, and he's performing on the streets.
I did not know he went to Juilliard.
Yeah, he went to Juilliard. And he dropped out. And I was like, and he is probably one of my favorite actors to watch. So I said, that inspired me, and the teacher saying that. And I thought, like, I kind of brought them both together. Like, you are on stage. You have an audience. You don't have another actor on stage, but the listening and answering is with the audience, so you still have that going. The audience becomes the other actor. You write. You kind of, you set everything up to perform. So you really end up being. It's closer than we think. Acting.
Well, it's
comedy.
also like if you're going to be an actor, what's weird about being an actor is you don't get to act that much. You know what I mean? So like you go in an audition and you haven't warmed up. You haven't started the car in like 6 months.
Right.
And you're like, clerk.
Yeah.
And so when you get used to going up and like, all right, now's the time to perform. That's the hardest part of it is going up when you're not in the mood to do it.
Right.
The other side of that is stand-up can be such like a party, and then an audition can be such a job interview.
Right.
I mean, you have
Right.
to make it a party.
Yeah.
You have to be that loose. You have to bring that quote-unquote swagger,
Right.
which I've always found difficult under the fluorescent lights. But you're absolutely right. Like,
It is.
stand-up is right there for you.
Yeah.
And you can start today with stand-up.
Right.
You look at the internet.
Yeah. I
You
was
gonna say, Google an open mic.
You
Yeah.
go to the
Start
open
right
mic.
now, yeah.
And now you're
Yeah.
a fucking stand-up comic.
And it's nuts because you know there's you see that a lot with open micers. You know a lot of comics when they start off it's almost as though they don't need an audience. They will be almost reciting
Oh, yeah.
the stand up. Like there's a difference between talking to an audience and at an audience.
Yeah.
So I guess the acting really helped me to really talk to them,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll get lost in my head and just like reciting the jokes and constantly listening and answering and listening and answering, and yeah, it's been like an uphill battle. And you have your great months and you have your bad months, and as long as this will always happen, those vicissitudes. But as long
Yeah.
as it keeps going
Yeah.
up and not like
Yeah.
spiraling down.
If there's no up and down, just straight
Right,
down.
right.
Yeah,
Right,
maybe
right.
check something else out.
So
Maybe.
right. But then you spoke to me about a podcast a while ago.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned you wanted to do something positive with it. I thought it was beautiful. And then I met Brennan not too long ago, man.
No, yeah, it's been a couple
Not too long-
months.
Yeah, a couple of months. And immediately loved the vibe. And I what I thought was really cool is besides all being white males, I thought it'd be really white males. No, you're not. Right,
Oh,
well,
shit.
Depends
This is gonna be a tough
what
sell.
you identify with, but I thought it's impossible. I told you that from the get-go. We are never gonna get
Daniel's gonna
any
be like, I
listeners.
was right
Like,
about
all right.
this.
We've gone negative so
I'm half
quick.
Latino.
Oh, good.
Ya tú sabes. But what was cool is I immediately saw that we were all three different individuals.
Mhm.
And I thought, yo, this could be great. And he's got loads of stories and one hell of a background and other podcasts
Yes.
that he's doing as well. And I was like, let's do this. So you tell him.
So, my name is Brennan Tasseff. I met Matt, and it's funny how Matt is the common denominator in this, but there are a lot of people in this business. I started comedy in 2009, and there are a lot of people who say things. Like, you'll meet someone like, I'm from Florida originally, and trust me, when you hear some of my background, you're going to be like, yeah, that checks out. But there are some people that you meet, and they go, oh, if you're ever in New York, look me up, or if you're ever in LA, look me up, and they don't mean it, they just say it. But Matt was true to his word. So I found Matt through, it's a long story, through different podcasting, but then eventually landed on Your Mom's House. And then Matt was a guest once. This is like in 2012 or 13.
Yeah, Your Mom's House is a podcast.
Yeah,
And
and
thanks for clarifying that. Like, whoa, back up.
that is
You know
why
what,
they
Brennan?
that is why they call it that too. And I never put it
And you're
together
doing a
until I
podcast
say it
with
out loud. But yeah, so then I had been a fan of Matt's for 10 years, 12 years, and it was really cool because whenever you'd come into Florida, I'd always make sure to come see you. And then when I started my podcast after I got sober, Ex-Drinking Buddy, I had reached out to Matt, and I had honestly thought, podcasts are such a one-sided thing. Like, you guys are talking and I'm just listening. Like, I was like, oh, we're not friends. This isn't going to work. But I reached out, and Matt was the first guest I had that had any sort of credits or any sort of gravity in the comedy community. And he just was like, yeah, man, of course I'll come on. No problem.
Yeah, I was at my mother-in-law's house in Louisiana,
Yeah.
and my days were wide open.
You were like, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, I'll block an hour.
And then I had talked about
Somebody I don't know.
and then I had talked about coming to New York, and Matt did the very polite thing where he's like, yeah, if you're ever in New York, look me up. But then he was true to his word, which just
how
shows.
many people don't mean that?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right,
There's
that's
so many
insane.
people.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that really, and then Matt, and being in New York has really become, I know you don't like me spouting off about how grateful I am for you, but you've really become
I love it.
a mentor and a very good friend with everything. Like when I first moved, so a little bit of a background. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I've been sober for almost 5 years now. And the spiral that you guys were talking about, I'm very familiar with, not in so much of the comedy sense, but I started comedy in 2009 after I stopped playing Division I football because of my 8th concussion. And then there was a string of arrests. I've been arrested 8 times.
You just skipped over that. You got 8 concussions?
Yeah.
Wow.
8?
I didn't know that.
So I was
I heard
pre-law.
a concussion.
Yeah, I was pre-law, and I was playing Division I football at Florida Atlantic University. Go Owls. Oh, and I was pre-law there. It's a mic. I have to do that every time. And then I got my 8th concussion at practice one day, and they were like, listen, man, you're not even starting. Like, you barely even touched the field. Like, we don't think this is going to work out. So I left the team, and immediately, as a natural addict, immediately filled that void of practice and workouts and everything with drugs and alcohol, and barely graduated by the skin of my teeth, and I had gone down. Like, it was bad. And I had started comedy shortly after I had left football, but I was just doing open mics like hammered, like once a month or something like that. And then fast forward 8 arrests later, my ex-fiance had left me, like my whole world had crashed. And then I ended up in the hospital being told by a doctor, like, hey, man, we see this all the time. Like, you should be dead. Like, this doesn't make any sense, the fact that you're even alive. And that was in 2018. And that's when I was like, okay, I need to get serious about what I'm doing. And then I dove headfirst back into comedy because I had taken a break for a couple years, got my shit together, moved to New York, reached out to you, and you were 100% true to your word. You were like, yeah, man, let's hang. I need to get out of the house more. I need to go do stuff. And you were like, let's go hang. And so from there, we just developed a very close friendship. And then you had mentioned the idea of this podcast. And then you had mentioned Daniel. And when we all first met, and it was so funny because exactly what you're talking about, I was like, we're so different. We all have this common goal of trying to see the bright side in things, which is kind of how this podcast came about.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we all get there in a different way, which I think is why it actually works. But yeah, I'm definitely the loose cannon of the group.
Well, we need a wild card.
Yeah.
And that's Brennan. And so talk about just for a second, like, you got the balls, you got your shit together, you're moving to New York, and then 2020 is knocking on the fucking door.
This was incredible. You brought that up. This is crazy. So I'm from Florida where COVID doesn't exist. Yeah, I didn't know how to word that. But yeah, so I started doing shows in December of 2020. Like, I was doing shows in Georgia and Florida, and that's actually how I got COVID the first time, was doing shows to these like 250 people rooms. Yeah. And so we were supposed to move. We were supposed to sign our lease April 1st of 2020. And then in March, everything starts to kind of, the writing's on the wall. And brokers in New York are such sharks that they were like, just sign the lease electronically. This is like March 15th. They go, just sign the lease electronically. And I was like, I've had friends move up here sight unseen, and it was a disaster. So I told my girlfriend at the time, we're not signing anything until we are standing in the living room of the apartment. Right. Luckily, I said that and put my foot down, because a week later, we both got calls from our regular jobs saying our transfers were off. Everything was shut down.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was, I don't think of it, and I've been told this by other people in sobriety and people in recovery. They're like, how did you, like, that must have crushed you. Like, your dream of moving to New York was just dashed. Like, how did you not drink over it? But at the time, I was just like, oh, well, eventually this will be over, and we'll go to New York.
That when the pandemic first started, that we were all thinking, okay, so what, 2 weeks?
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought, yeah.
And then after 6 months, it was like, well, this is probably just forever then.
Yeah, and
this is indefinite.
The scariest part about it was, because in my head, I don't have, obviously, being an addict, I don't really have a quit thing. Like, everything that's happened in the last couple of weeks where my girlfriend and I broke up and people are like, oh, you're going to move back to Florida? It's like, no, like, that doesn't even register in my head. It's like, no, I'm here. And it was the same thing during the pandemic. It didn't even register that we might not go to New York. It was just like, oh, now this just gets delayed.
Right.
Like, we're going. But then, like you said, after like 4 or 5 months, I was like, oh, we're going. Like, eventually everyone's going to die and we're going to, like, then it's going to be over, or this is going to calm down and we're going to move. But either way,
it's so funny to think about. Like, I don't know what you guys did, all the work I did during the pandemic. Like, I was like, I don't know when I'm going back to stand-up, but I'm working on my hour.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm doing 2 podcasts. And I'm just, like, wearing myself out for, like, a dormant business.
I think the scariest thing is that we were kind of going week to week, sometimes month to month, not knowing. Like, if someone told us, like, you have 2 years to do whatever you want, we would have completely shifted
How great would that first year been?
Yeah.
You'd be like, I'm taking a year off.
Yeah.
Right.
And then
But,
I'm going to get my shit together in the second year.
Exactly.
The problem was, it was like you said, they said 2 weeks, and then it became a month, and then
Right.
So we never knew, like, okay, when are we going back?
Yeah.
Are we going back now?
It was kind of like 9/11, you know, when every morning you'd wake up and you'd watch the news, and they would say like, "Oh, orange alert." Orange alert.
Yeah.
And then every morning you know, I would take the subway, and I'm like, "Oh man, it's not safe."
Yeah.
So I kind of felt the same way, not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if we only knew, I think we would have been way less stressed. We would have planned things so much differently.
Yeah.
But let's tell them about what we want to do with this, with like segments and all the fun stuff we got.
Yeah. We've got several segments we came up with.
Fun, man.
The whole podcast, I think, this is the first idea of the podcast, was the segment, Was I a Dick?
Yep.
I love
And
that one.
so
This is the brainchild of everything.
I'm getting better and better about not being in my head and not freaking out if I make a social mistake anymore, but I still think it's a fun game. Especially as a comedian, you have to analyze and overanalyze every experience you have, because there might be gold in them there hills.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll just go ahead and go first. Little setup. I was in LA recently, and when I'm in LA, I just run into people all day long. I lived there for 20 years, and people shout "full charge" out of their cars when I'm walking down the street.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
That is, yeah.
And,
He says it like, yeah, you know, and I'm like, dude, if people yell Tasseff.
well, yeah, but no, it's always strange, but it's true. And then I think about the people that don't shout something out. I'm probably on blast all day long when I'm walking down the street. But anyway, I ran into my friend Gary Cannon at the Improv on Thursday night, and I don't drink that much anymore. For the past 7 years, I've limited my drinking so that because I can't sleep if I have more than 2 drinks, and so I've been very good about it. But I got caught up in the moment of doing 2 shows, and I am subject to peer pressure. Like, I kept going. My friend Gary was like, "You want a third drink?" And I was like, "Nah." And he's like, "Oh, come on, man." And I was like, all right. And then it turned into a fourth, and I didn't drink anything crazy, just too much for me.
Right.
And I got a shit night's sleep. And then I was going to check out an art exhibit the next night, and I was like, "Fuck, I got to get some sleep if I'm going to enjoy this art exhibit." So it was around 11 a.m. and I found this. Talk about spirals. I found this joint in my friend's house that I was staying at, and I was like, "I'll smoke this joint and then I'll get to sleep." Right? So I smoked a joint and I go to sleep, but I'm not sleepy. I'm hungry. So I order a pizza, and it's on the website, and it says, how much do you want to tip? I said 20%. And then the pizza comes, and then the guy hands me the receipt, and it's got the price, which is some odd numbers like 35, 67, and then the tip, which is the 20% of the tip, which is like 579. And I'm just looking at it all stoned, like they didn't add it up for me. They didn't add it up for me is what I'm trying to say. And I'm just looking at this receipt stoned, like trying to add up these odd numbers with usually if it wasn't ahead of time, I would just write 5 and add 5.
Yeah.
But now it's like 523 or some shit, couple odd numbers. And I just looked at it for like 6 seconds, and I said to the pizza guy, I go, "I can't do this math, dude. I'm stoned." And he goes, "That's all right. The computer will do it for you." And I was just like, okay. Yeah. And I just signed it and then ate the fucking pizza. I already know. Well, I'll hear your guys' opinions on it. I don't feel bad about it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I don't think you were a dick at all.
If you would have said I got stoned and then just didn't tip or didn't pay, or you got stoned and then like charged it to your friend that you were staying with, then I'd be like, okay, that's fucked up. But yeah, just
Wait. If anything, you smoked your friend's joint without. Right. Was that the dicky part?
Well, no. That's a joint I left there.
Oh.
okay. Yeah, you got all your bases
amazing.
covered. Yeah, you're a saint in this.
Passed me, left me a tool to use to get to bed, which I did, by the way. I ate that pizza and I went to bed, and I was fine for that Beastie Boys exhibit that night.
Oh, Beastie Boys.
You go,
Nice.
Yeah, you're a saint in that.
Yeah.
It was your joint. You still tipped. You just didn't add the meth up.
I did apologize too.
Yeah.
So
You're
Come on.
aces.
all right. Well, listen, I already used my good one.
All right, I got.
I've got every day. I'm like, oh, this is a great. Was I a dick?
I was going to tell the audience up front. This is the 5th episode we're taping, but this is even though it's our first episode.
Yeah,
we did all these episodes, and then Daniel.
Very wisely was like,
maybe you think we should maybe introduce ourselves.
Do one episode where they get to know
the
who we
premise
are.
of the
Right.
podcast.
Right.
And me and Brennan were just like,
yeah.
Well, I got a good one. I thought of one today. So you know how New Yorkers are stereotypically known to be rude and just awful people, and I caught myself being one of those. I got caught up in the rush of, catching the subway, and I was running. The subway arrived. I was running down the stairs, and there's this woman or person. I didn't even know if it was a woman or a man, moving extremely slowly. And I ran down the stairs, and I was so rushed. And I don't even remember why. You know, it's probably just to be home and not wait another 20 minutes because it was a late subway. And I accidentally pushed the person, but I made it inside.
Yeah.
And then when I turned around, I apologized immediately. I noticed that it was an old woman with a cane.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh man, I'm that person. So she wouldn't have made it to the subway. So I held the door. They kept like closing the door, and I was like, I'm so sorry, please come. And I held the door. But I was so embarrassed because then you see her walk towards you slowly, and you're holding the whole subway because of what you did.
Right.
And it took maybe 15, 20 seconds, which is very long when the doors
standing,
keep, they keep shutting.
When you're bombing and
everyone's
when you're standing
right.
there.
Yeah.
And then she sits down, and I apologized profusely.
Yeah.
And I said, listen, I'm so sorry. I was in a rush. I didn't notice. And she was giving me a lot of attitude, and I understood. And then, oddly enough, when we both get off in Astoria, Steinway stop. So we're at the door. We exit. I said, hey, man, miss, I'm so sorry. I apologize again. And she said, get over it, asshole. And I didn't know I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know if that made me feel better or if it was even,
Yeah.
So I was definitely a dick for not being aware and becoming, what I hate the most about the city.
Yeah.
But then she was a dick too at the end.
She was a dick too. So
it almost cancels out.
Yeah.
Well, okay. First of all,
you guys.
We should explain the different ratings.
Oh
which I
yeah,
haven't
we
done
have
yet.
the.
So
System.
you're either a dick, a decent person, or a saint.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna give you decent person since you apologized
profusely,
and then you transfer it over into saint territory.
Ooh.
But that woman didn't
or martyr.
Well, maybe. But the only problem, the apologies are great. I think too many apologies, it doesn't make you a dick.
It makes you Canadian.
But the other person
makes you Canadian, man.
There you
it just
go.
makes you Canadian.
And so when you're in the States, people are a little more they don't know how to deal with more than 2 apologies. And then it also she probably doesn't, just like we all won't want to be perceived as somebody
Right.
that needs special treatment.
Yeah.
Right.
When they're older. But but you're still a saint. And this woman went from decent person to dick.
Yeah,
So it
it
was
flip-flopped.
a nice thing.
So
and I liked that she was a dick a little bit.
Yeah, it's
you
a
know
good-
what I mean?
it makes a
she
good
got
story.
it. She got it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
She got it out. Now she doesn't feel so bad. She got to be a New Yorker too.
Right. So I technically went from a dick, you're saying, to decent person.
No, I think you're always a decent person because that was an accident.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you push this woman out of the way
On purpose.
then
If you were
that-
like, I have
you
to
could-
get to the train.
you could never eclipse that dick, no matter how
Right.
much you
Right.
you shifted into Canadian.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely would
I'm
put
giving
you there,
you
too.
decent person into sainthood.
Woo!
Yeah, that's
All
a
right.
nice transition. It's
Yeah.
better to go in that direction.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
I've got a few. So I've got a bad habit of obviously losing my cool sometimes,
Uh-huh.
especially at work because I still have to work in the service industry because my career is doing one of those right now.
Well, let's look at the bright side on that one. I mean,
Yeah,
you
that's
make
true.
good money doing this shit.
So that's the thing.
And you
So
just moved to New York City.
full disclosure to the listeners, in Florida, unless you're like headlining like a road dog, you can't really make a great income off comedy. So I would supplement that by working in restaurants, because I'd worked in restaurants all during the off season, during football, my whole life. So then when I moved to New York, I got a job at a swanky steakhouse, and it was such good money that I was like, oh, I can't. And to Matt's credit, Matt was the first person who was like, until you were working so much you just can't make it to the steakhouse, you cannot quit. He's like, even if you go down to like 1 day a week, like you can't
with
quit.
a job like that.
Yeah,
with
because
a job like that.
yeah, because we make dumb money, and so it turned into a situation where now I'm in New York, but obviously to supplement my income until I can get past it, more clubs and stuff, I'm working at the restaurant. Now, I don't know if it's perfectionist or control freak or what character defect I have that leads me to this, but it gets very busy, and it's a very swanky place, so the expectations from the guests are incredibly high. So when things don't go my way, I tend to lose my cool, as it were. But it's never anything violent, or like I don't scream or yell or anything like that. But sometimes I'll say things that probably, what is the old saying? It's not what you said, it's how you said it.
Sure.
I get that a lot when I'm being critiqued. So the other day at work, this was a couple weeks ago. The natural comic in me the other day. This was a few weeks ago though, where my ex-girlfriend and I had just broken up. So this is going to be weird out of the time stamp for the listeners, but
sure, don't expect any chronologic.
There's not going to be any order to this. So my girlfriend and I had just broken up. I was going through a lot because in that moment I didn't know where I was going to live. I didn't know what was happening with comedy. You know, we were just starting this podcast, and I was like, you know, and my other podcast is doing well, but not well enough to where I can quit. So it was just a lot on my plate. And I told one of my buddies who's from Staten Island that I work with, all he does is talk shit. He's from Staten Island. He loves talking shit.
The whole ferry over.
Every day at work, like you'll walk by him and he'll just go, get out of my fucking face. Like just because he thinks it's playful. And it is. It's, you know, all in good fun. But
you don't feel so bad now, do you, dude?
I love where this is going.
So he does this to me early in the shift, and I said, hey, man, listen, like I'm going through a lot right now, and I consider us friends, so I told him what was happening. I go, Savannah and I just broke up. Like there's a lot going on, like just not today. Like any day, but not today. And he just kept on, and he kept on. So finally, towards the end of the shift, I had to give something to a table, and he was kind of standing in the way. So instead of saying anything, you know, as servers, we kind of move in relation to everyone else.
Right.
So I kind of just put my hand on his back and kind of give him a little nudge as I'm handing something to the table.
Yeah.
Then he comes over to me at the computer and says, hey, man, you know you can be polite and say, excuse me. And I lost it. Because this is the guy who's always talking shit, telling me to be polite. So this is was I a dick? So I lose my mind, and I know I'm a dick in that moment because I literally said things like, you Staten Island piece of fucking garbage. Like, and he's not even from Staten Island. He just happens to live there now.
He's from Michigan. Like
he's from somewhere else. But in the moment, I lost it. I did see red a little bit, and I was like I didn't threaten any violence or anything like that, but I was aggressive.
Right. And
immediately after, like I said, like 5 seconds worth of things, I was like, oh my God. Oh, like I caught and I was like, he was like looking at me dumbfounded, and I go, I am so sorry. Like I've had it. It was a bad day. Yeah. And I apologized profusely. And then later on, I called him over to me, and we were in the back, and we totally squashed everything. Right. And we're cool again now. But I want to know if I'm a decent person or a dick, because I know there's no level of sainthood here, but I wanted to get your guys' judgment call. If someone tells you, hey, I'm having a rough day, and you keep egging them on, and then they lash out, does that make me a dick, or am I still in like the decent person category? Because I told you, like, I'm having a bad day.
First of all, you're going to get dual citizenship to Canada with all that apology. So I like that. It's good to have options. No, of course, you've already explained it that way. Like, yeah, you were a dick, but someone helped you get there.
Yeah, like
you said to this guy, hey, don't make me be a dick. And he was like, can't do that. Not today. And just stepped on the fucking gas.
Yeah.
You know, you were a decent person. And that guy, I don't want to say he made you be a dick, but he sure as fuck helped you be a dick. Yeah. When you told him right into his eyes, I want to be a decent person, which actually gets you closer to saint at that moment. All right. I'm going to give you, it's like when a boxer It's like when they call the fight.
Okay, yeah.
Like
TKO,
you're
yeah.
a decent person on a technicality.
Okay, yeah. Technical, decent person.
Yeah.
Little
I like
TK.
that.
Right, but
Yeah.
you actually got the guy on the mat.
TDP, yeah.
So it's kind of like, I'm losing the metaphor here, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You're
yeah.
a dick, but it doesn't count.
Okay, I'll take that. Because
yeah.
I felt so bad in the moment.
I think you warned him. You're a decent. I totally that was beautifully said. The only thing I would
Except
I
for
guess
the boxing part.
yeah, well I would just I hate saying, or I hate giving people that power to say that you made me do something.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Because then one, that gives them way too much power, and I do believe, and this takes tremendous power, willpower to just be responsible for every action that you take, and I think if anything, if you were a dick, you were just a dick to yourself, but not so much to him. Like, you did warn him very clearly. You had a bad day, so it's kind of whack on his side, but to just also, but you also acknowledged it. You also acknowledged that you lost it. You spoke to him about it. You apologized. So I think you handled it really cool. And we're human,
Yeah.
We
Well, that's something I love that you brought that up, because that is something, especially in the last 5 years in my sobriety, that I've become fully aware of. And this is something that actually bothers me now, is I take and have taken 100% responsibility for all the things I've done. And like I talk about it in my one-man show about my arrest and everything like that. It's very much like, because in the program that I'm in, you learn, well, what was your, like, what did you have in that? Like, what was your part in that? Mm-hmm. And sometimes you don't want to look at that. Like, and for me, like, I know sometimes I'm like, no, like, this other person screwed me over. And people always tell me, but what was your part in that? Uh-huh. Like, how could you, like, why did you let that happen to, like, it's full responsibility on you.
Right.
And that is something I've gotten so much better at.
Right.
And I've been very aware of, where it's like, I don't care what's going on around me. At the end of the day, it's on me how I react to things. Uh-huh. And so sometimes I still blow up, but I am so quick now to, like, even as I'm blowing up, I'll stop and be like, this is out, like, I'm out of line. Like, this is bad. Because I can't stand, whether it's at work or with comedy or anything like that, I can't stand when it's like, oh, well, so-and-so did this, so now this is happening. It's like, this is your show. Like, don't blame it on other comics that we're not starting on time. Like, start the fucking show.
Right.
Like, well, let's go.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in my work at the restaurant. It's like, no, it's my fault. Like, oh, we ran out of something and nobody told me. Well, I should have asked. That's on me. Uh-huh. And sometimes it can get frustrating because it's like, like I said, you hold other people to the same expectation you hold yourself, and that'll always burn you.
Yeah, and also it's just such a tightrope act, because on the other side of that, you want to take responsibility but not blame so much, right?
That's true.
So you don't want to be like, you fucked up, it's your fault, and all that shit, because that's no good either.
That can lead to a really bad spiral.
Yeah. So it's very difficult to navigate this goddamn world.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's just it's being responsible for how you feel.
Yep.
It's how we feel. To really think that we're in charge of how we feel, and it's tricky. It's tricky because life will throw you curveballs, and then you'll say, "Well, it's life," but then how do I decide to feel about it? Mm-hmm. Great story. We got some more fun stuff about like weekly challenges.
Yes, we're going to.
Daniel's on it today.
It's first episode, right? So let's tell them what we're about.
I got this in here. I snuck this in on the notes. I forgot about this segment altogether.
Which one?
And I'm slightly unprepared, though. I do have an answer. How did you make the world a better place?
Oh yeah.
And I think I rushed through that one because it's kind of like this
you were
week.
born.
Yeah.
Boom.
Come on, man.
Hope you guys got insurance for that.
Yeah.
Full charge.
I'm starting to get uncomfortable now. I did one thing I can think of recently, where I was going to get a bagel, and this dude was asking for money outside the bagel place, and I have a policy, like, I won't go in my wallet to give money, because it's just that's what I learned in Baltimore, just like from friends in Baltimore. I think it's a good policy.
Yeah,
you take your wallet out. There could be a grabbing of the wallet, probably not, but I have a policy. Anyway, I went in and got a bagel, and I said, you know what? Give me another bagel. And I gave it to the dude.
There you go.
I think I made that guy's world a better place.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I want to preface this little segment by saying, a lot of people say, if you do good deeds, you shouldn't share them with people because it kind of taints it, and you're kind of, I don't know. A lot of religious people think that too.
Well, I really would.
No, but you know what I mean.
But the segment.
Right? No. But this is why I want to preface it, and
Yeah.
I think I feel the opposite. I feel when I hear a story like that, it inspires me to
Motivates me.
Yeah,
It motivates me to do better.
I think of that, and I'm like, it reminds me to what can I do. There's a book that I read a while ago. I think it was called The Power of Intention. And he said something really cool. And it was, if do something kind to a complete stranger, if you can every day. And he gave an example of just like, every day we take the subway. So every now and then this person would just buy a ticket for the next person, not knowing who the next person is. And then the person would show up and like, can I get a pass? And you go, well, it's already taken care of.
Oh, that's cool.
Unless the ATM officer just pockets the money all the time.
Yeah, right.
But the idea of just doing something not only kind for like people we know, friends, family, but just like a complete stranger is really, I think that's how it just spreads out the good vibes.
Yeah, because you also have a tendency to be like, I'm not going to be a sucker. But if you hear someone else did it, you're like, Matt's a sucker. I'll be a sucker too.
Right.
Yeah.
And how almost weirdly enough, how good it makes us feel.
Yeah.
How you can almost get high off of kindness.
And that's a great addiction.
That's
just giving out bagels all day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just and just somehow bagels come back.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Bagels come back.
That's one of the worst things when you're struggling, and I've never been that bad off, but just the idea that like you're calling people for help and no one cares is like worse than the fact that you're eating for like $3 a day, is the fact that no one gives a shit when they have so much.
I have been in that situation because when I was in active addiction, there came a point where nobody wanted to even talk to me.
Yeah.
Because it was bad.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where, you'd call someone and they'd reject your call, or you'd leave because it became a thing where Brennan's only calling because he needs something.
Right.
And I hated having that reputation, but I totally understand why people would ignore me. But there's nothing lower than being in a situation where you're like, oh, there's like no help is coming.
That's the thing. Sometimes you find yourself in a predicament. It might even be your own fault. But like you're still there.
Yeah.
And you still need to recover from it.
Yeah.
And
it's like, I fell into this hole, but I still need to get out, you guys.
My fault, but come on. You never fucked up before?
Here.
Yeah.
I just need one good week.
Yeah.
I just need one good week. Somebody give it to me. One good job. One good something.
And that's all it takes sometimes is that one person helping, and then it can change. Because I've seen it. I've seen it living in halfway houses. I've seen it in detoxes and rehabs and going to jail. One of my good buddies, Austin D, I was in jail with him in Palm Beach County. This is years ago, like almost 10 years ago. And he was the same issues. Was, an addict, could not stop like using. Obviously, he's an addict. And he would steal from people and rob people and just was in a bad way. And we were both in jail together. And at the time, I had just gotten out of rehab, and then I went to jail. So I was sober, and he was trying to stay sober. And we have kept in touch ever since. He started his own business. Like he's literally given other people jobs. He's like changed other people's lives staying sober. But it's
This is the My Pillow guy.
Yeah, right. But I only say that to say like it's so weird how like you can be at the absolute rock bottom. And like you said, you just need a little help to get out. And once he got out, he started helping everybody else.
I read this book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, about money. And there was like, the one thing that stuck out to me was it says like, you're sitting there thinking you need everything to go right because you think about everything that goes wrong. Mm-hmm. He's like, you just need one or two things to go right. And that can really help you.
And people always remember you for that person that you were. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they don't think that you can change, and they just label you as that asshole, or
Mm-hmm.
and then you climb out of it, and then you help people.
I have that relationship with some
Yeah.
people in my life still.
Yeah, they
people
just-
I've known forever, and they think of me
Yeah, they
in
put
that
you in a
light.
box,
Yeah,
right.
and that's fine, because again, going back to taking responsibility for our own actions, I did that to myself, so it's fine. And there's something that I do, which is just I always try to do the next right thing. And it's not, I used to care so much about my reputation within my family circle and friend circles and stuff. And now I'm just like, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I don't really give a fuck what you guys
Yeah,
think.
you also can't control. It's just
Yeah,
like, you
it's
gotta
like-
chalk that out of your control.
Yeah, and so it's one of those things though where it's very interesting you brought that up, because there are some people in my life who still think of me, and it's my own fault, because I had gotten sober 5 or 6 times before I actually got
Right.
sober, and then we're so quick to want to go and apologize and make amends to people and stuff, and then I would do all that, and then I'd start drinking again, and they'd be like, Brennan's just being Brennan. And now,
Right.
like, obviously the people I care about the most, my closest friends and like my immediate family circle, they all know what's going on. But there are some people in the tertiary that are kind of like, oh, Brennan, that fuck up.
Yeah.
And then, people will be like, actually, he lives in New York and he's doing comedy and podcast. Like,
And
he's
you just-
doing it.
yeah.
And they're like, wait, the same Brennan that called us from jail asking for money on his books? And they're like, yeah, that one.
No, and you also just went through a breakup and
Yeah.
a move.
So cool, man.
Yeah.
Kept a job, kept doing stand-up,
Yeah.
kept doing 3 podcasts.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
People tell me, people, and we've joked about this before, but people are always like, well, and I see what you guys do. And I'm always like, I'm not doing shit. Like, you guys are on the road, like actually traveling and stuff like that. Like, I don't have to leave my apartment for half the shit I
Yeah,
do.
Well, listen, everybody's got 2 podcasts, but
Yeah.
Brennan's got 3.
Yeah. No one listens to the sports one. I just do that one for fun.
That's amazing, man. That's really, really amazing.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
We got more segments. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. I thought it'd be fun if we spoke about like a weekly challenge.
Yes.
What can we do?
Yeah, and I think so. So the idea is we bring up a challenge for each
Right.
other, and we all do it. This week, that ain't gonna work exactly because it's
A little out of order.
it's the day before Christmas, or the week of
yeah,
Christmas,
yeah.
and New Year's, and so it's probably not a good time to give stuff up. But what is a great time for a physical challenge,
Right.
not necessarily give stuff up, is New Year's.
Yes.
That traditionally,
Yeah, but a lot of people say, screw that. If you want to, you don't need New Year's to start get motivated, or it starts now. And I do agree with that. But we were just talking earlier before recording this about Tim Ferriss, and he really has a great perspective on really using the new year, not as an excuse, but as a good reason to start fresh and reevaluate. He does this thing where he would kind of reevaluate his year. He sits down, he writes, and I started doing that for a few years now. I would take the 31st, I don't know why I'm getting emotional about this, but the night before the new year, just look at your whole year. Like, look at what you've been successful at, what you failed, how you could have been a better, either parent, friend, son, and
don't beat yourself up, though.
And right, and with work, what could you have done better? What could you have? What did you do good? How good were you with your body, with how you ate, with how you exercised? And I always take a good 2 hours on the 31st, 1 hour of just writing about my whole year, as much as I can remember.
Yeah.
And then I take the next hour to just really write a lot like the artist's way, that free
Yeah.
writing, but of how I can be better, how I can improve. And I got on Tim Ferriss maybe 4 or 5 years ago. He wrote this amazing book called Tools of Titans. And it's all the habits of extremely successful people in every field, from poets to engineers to athletes to actors. And you kind of read it like a buffet. You don't have to read it from beginning to end. And you there's comics in the book, and it's their daily habits that they have to what they do to be successful on a daily basis. And it was extremely, extremely helpful to me, because I would read, and it's every individual is like maybe 3 to 5 pages.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
So you take a morning with your coffee before you start writing, and you just read 3 to 5 pages of whoever you want, or you follow that order. And dietitians, everything, you know, Schwarzeneggers and like everyone, but it's fascinating.
I can imagine just an aside, sitting, drinking a coffee, reading at like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and you're reading Arnold's. It's like, wake up at 4:15, gym at
Right.
4:30, and you're like, I'm already 3 hours behind. I don't know.
I feel like a failure.
Yeah.
So and it's incredible. Even like Paulo Coelho, I think if I remember well, you know, he has this technique where, because he's a writer, and he would just procrastinate throughout the whole day.
Yeah, he's a writer.
Yeah, and he wouldn't write until to the point where he would feel guilty about not writing, and then with that guilt would trigger.
Literally just happened to me.
Right. Yeah. So that's his thing.
Turns out I'm doing it right.
Right. That's his technique.
Let me tell you, I love New Year's, the whole concept of New Year's Day.
I fell in love with
love it. I don't care what people say,
Yeah.
like, oh, it's bullshit. That's because they don't approach it correctly.
Right. But because you can do it any day.
I love to approach it. Forget the holidays. That's all nice and everything. I like the first Monday back.
Yeah.
I even like the Happy New Year.
Yeah.
I'm into it. It tastes like vanilla ice cream to my soul. It's like fresh snow on the ground. I love it, and I take advantage of it. And I already did what you were talking about, where I went through my last year, and I was like, this year, 2022. I wrote down everything, not like accomplished, but everything I did, including like everywhere I went, and also what I accomplished.
List
and
gets
I
long.
was like, oh man,
Yep.
what a good year. And now I'm excited about 2023. I got a lot of stuff that I'm looking forward to, and I am going to do something, even though I'm not a big drinker anymore. I'm going no January, no booze. I've decided to take on.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's like little challenges that
Yep.
we share. It could be a weekly thing. It could be, it could be something so simple as, I don't know, no bread, no pasta for a week, for example. Or it could be something a little deeper, like I'm going to work out every day for a month, or I'm going to read a book a week, or a book every 2 weeks. And just stay on top of that. Or it could be something as simple as, I'm going to help a stranger, or I'm going to do something kind for someone
Absolutely.
that is a family member that I haven't seen or reached out to in a long while. And so we share. I think it'd be fun to say what we want to do, and the following week we go ahead
Break
and
it down.
like, how did that go?
Matt, I think I'm going to join you on the dry January.
Oh, you already got it. Nice, fucker. You're Schwarzeneggering me. You're already ahead of me. It's not fair.
Add a month to my 60. Mine is no sugar.
Okay.
No sugar.
Yeah, so shooting the one man.
Artificial sugar, you mean?
No added processed sugar.
Okay.
That's yeah.
So fruits and all.
Yeah,
all
I'm
the
gonna
good
still
stuff.
do.
Right,
I'm gonna regular diet,
Right.
but no candies, no cakes, no pies, no added artificial sugar is what my goal is
For a month, for a week, for what?
for the month of January.
Okay,
So I'm
cool.
shooting my one man show at the end of January, and my whole thing is you never realize how, because I go to the gym 6 days a week, but I power lift, so it's not like a lot of cardio, and you never realize how chubby you actually are until you see yourself on camera.
Well, yeah,
It's a weird
this
angle.
podcast has been really bad for my self-esteem.
I'm
Once I looked
always
at the
like
video,
sucking it
yeah,
in,
yeah,
and,
yeah.
but it's one of those things where, like, when I did a spot at the Cellar a couple months ago, and I thought I looked great, and then I watched it back, and like I turn at one point, and my shirt's a little too tight, and then like you see my belly over my jeans, and I was like, oh, this cannot happen because the one man show is like a big thing that I'm doing, so
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I have to be, and there are selfish reasons why I'm doing it, because I want to look good
Sure.
for the camera, but my biggest problem is my sweet tooth. My biggest problem is cocaine and booze, but since I've
Okay.
cut that out, my biggest problem is
Right.
my sweet tooth.
Twizzlers.
So
Yeah.
I can't. It's that
Which you would
addictive.
use to snort cocaine.
But it's that dopamine hit that you get from eating sugar, the artificial sugar,
Right.
that little bit of a rush. So I'm cutting out. I'm gonna try expectations, got to keep them level. I'm going to try to cut out as much artificial and added sugars as possible for all of January.
Yeah, and then you also got to let go a little bit of trying to look perfect.
Yes,
but
that's true.
I salute you, and I think you're doing the right thing.
It's the way my
Because you
brain
do-
works.
you
Instead
still
of going that way, I went the other way.
You still want to look your best.
Yes,
the best that you
absolutely.
can.
Yes.
You know?
And there's something about feeling good when when
artificial
feel,
sugars
yeah.
make you feel like shit.
But I mean, when you work out, when you eat
Oh,
well,
yeah.
you feel good.
But you know
He's
what I
got
mean?
the
Like,
workout part
Right.
down.
yeah, but
Right.
it's that because I know what it does to your body. It's sugar. Artificial sugar is toxic. Like it hurts your joints. It hurts. It gives you inflammation. It like does all these bad things. But I just love it.
Yeah, it's
Right.
good. It's
So
good.
I'm gonna try to cut it out as much as possible. I'm gonna keep it within a reasonable expectation. Like if I like same thing with my sobriety. If I fall off and have a piece of pie, I'm not gonna kill myself about it. I'm gonna like just get back up on the horse and keep going.
Right.
That's cool, man. That's amazing.
You doing anything, Daniel?
I'm not sure yet. I want to think about it and reflect on the 31st.
Yeah, don't just
But-
make a snap decision.
No, but
All of a sudden you're giving up shirts.
No,
and
but
pants.
no, but I we got to wrap up soon. But very quickly, either it'll be overall, mentally, psychologically, I hate that word, spiritually, but whatever other word I can find for how to feed my mind. But I was thinking of either fasting for an entire day or doing a 10-day juice fast. Just to start the year cleansing and really stay on reading more because we are writers. So, Stephen King would say, you want to be a great writer, you got to be a great reader. Yeah. And it's like kind of almost 50-50, and we forget that sometimes.
I've gotten back to reading, and I'm not a very good reader anymore. I'm like going over this paragraph like a first grader.
Yeah.
Over
You get to the bottom of the page and you go, "What did I just read?"
Yeah. Well, that's also I think what social media does to us.
Oh,
It's
it kills us.
Yeah. Anything else before we wrap up? Because
No, I think that's gonna do it. I think that's our first episode of The Power of How.
Boom.
amazing.
And subscribe. You know this podcast stuff. I'm out of the loop.
Yeah, subscribe on. We have a Twitter. We are on social media. We have a Twitter and an Instagram. Power of How podcast. Subscribe on there. Follow
Rate and
us.
review.
Rate and review
what it is.
on all. Yeah, subscribe, rate, and review on all wherever you listen to podcasts. Also follow us on all social media. Follow me at Brennan T Comedy on everything.
At the full charge.
At Tornado Tirado.
Yeah.
And stay positive.
Yeah.
And we'll see you later.
Legion of thanks, baby.
How heads.